Hey, look, it's time for Bring It In, TrueHoop's little Zoom from quarantine show. And a lot of what we do at this moment is tell you what you are going to see on the show. But just for a second, we're going to take a moment. As you may know from watching on Monday, Adena Jones is not going to be with us through February because she's doing some brilliant things for her life. But here's a little sample of what you're not going to be seeing on Bring It In anytime soon.
You are celebrating John Thompson this morning, but you are deriding NBA players for striking, then you need to read a book. Because there was a time where John actually walked off the court because of Proposition 48, which said that if players were academically ineligible, they had to give up their freshman year. And he really thought this was a racist, biased rule because it disproportionately affected African Americans. And the fact is that at that point in time, I think it was like 90% of the 600 NCAA players were Black.
When someone tells you about their feelings, there should never be an argument. And that is all, because my feelings are always my truth. And that is all Black Lives Matter is. It's us telling you about our feelings. Now, as people say, a hit dog gonna holler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so that's what they are. They're hit dogs. Oh, they feel us. You feel a type of way because I'm talking about my feelings. Oh, you think I'm talking about you? You think I'm talking about you're the bad police officer, and or you're the bad person, and that's why you want to have this hashtag and you want to have this gang. And obviously, blue lives, how much do they matter to some of these people because they're in their face with AR-15s. They're pushing them. So now blue lives don't matter. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Preach on it, girl.
You know what I'm saying?
So I was training for the New York City Marathon, and I had to go to a retreat upstate New York once. And I knew that I had to get a 12-mile run in that weekend, but I didn't know where. I was literally about 5 hours outside of New York City. So I actually researched the voting patterns of people in that area before I went and noticed that they were highly Republican. And so I was already nervous in that sense. And then before I went for my run, I told two women, and this is a girl thing you would do. I mean, it's the middle of the afternoon, a girl thing, but definitely a Black person thing is I told them, hey, I'm really slow. I'm sexy pace. So I was like, I run about an 11-minute mile. I was like, if I'm not back in 2.5 hours, here's my father's phone number. I was like, I straight up was like, call the authorities. The truth is that Black people, we believe and love this country, not having a competition, but more than this country loves itself, right? Because we uphold its ideals, and we're holding them to these truths that are supposed to be self-evident every day. We're like, hey, you said I'm equal, make me equal. Hey, you said I'm protected, make me protected. And at the same time, while we're fighting for our civil rights, it's also like, well, these poor people over here and these women over here, and everyone benefits for this fight. And it's like, when I was listening to Carl, like all the Black women inside of me got tired because, and I feel you, like, this is my country and I'm here, but like, I vote, I speak up, like, what is the next thing? I gotta be like Cori Bush at AOC and I gotta get into office. And so I sent Judy this link that I wanna pull up that it made me feel like I was just like, there's this t-shirt that I've seen before, and it's like, it says, wait, I don't know if Judy's gonna pull up. Oh, there it goes. It's a t-shirt that I've seen, and it's like, I'll do it, Black woman. Like, that's how I feel. I was like, fuck, I gotta run for president? Cool.
She should run for president, though, right? That's the main point.
What she should do, I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but in addition to that, she should also host a comedy show with Dave Chappelle, a comedy and preaching show. Dave Chappelle, I told you on the phone yesterday, the SNL thing he did, I've never laughed harder, and I've been watching it since I was 11, 1976, the first year it came out, or 75, whatever it was. I've never laughed harder, and I've never felt something was more poignant than what Chappelle did.
We're not
right there with him.
Chappelle right now, David. We're talking about Adena. This is Adena.
No, what I'm saying is Adena is the only person,
totally like
Adena is the only person that could be with him and have the same gravity. In my world, she'd be right there with him. She's that sexy pace. Meanwhile, what she was saying was so valuable. Like, it was very funny, but it's just, she's
we're gonna miss her. And also, I have to admit, I think one of my all-time goals in life is to have Gerard make the sound.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just stole my thunder.
that results in that.
Yeah. That's our next video we're doing, Judy, is just preach, girl. Oh, hell yeah. I want to cook something really good for him. Go, keep going, coach.
Yeah. All right. So there's a weird, okay. Here's my sort of alternate reality thing where in the media right now, people are saying like, oh, it's the most sort of common, statistically based, boring thing ever to note that like at this point, Joe Biden has more votes than Donald Trump. It's like boring. But to some Americans, it's like, no, we don't know any of that. We'll see, like to be determined. I'm like, wow, that's discord. Similarly, like in the NBA, we have this little thing where the draft is next week and we can read some quotes. From on ESPN.com, LaMelo Ball is the most talented prospect in this class. Words like breathtaking and how he
franchise point guard,
franchise point guard, and on and on. And you're watching this video and saying, I've never seen an elite prospect who plays such terrible defense. Like, this is a big disconnect. What is going on with LaMelo Ball? Why is he wiring the brains of different people so differently?
That's a tough question to answer accurately. I'll do my best. I can only tell you what I've seen. And just to be fair, and this is normal for me, not always, but normally the case, if you ask me or if we talk about, I'm going to do analysis of someone, I don't want to know what anyone else thinks. I want my opinion not to be jaded. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but it's on me. And so I had no idea what people thought about LaMelo, other than he was ranked number one by everyone. And I saw what I saw on tape. And then afterwards, as I told you, I spoke to a very, very successful college coach yesterday who I think knows much more about the game than I do, certainly for young players that age, whatever, because he recruits them all the time. And he's coached a ton of NBA players, McDonald's All-Americans, and still is. And he had no idea what I wrote. And he said everything. He could have written my article, no problem. Because he recruited LaMelo or evaluated him and literally said to me, and I quote, when his team was up in one of these showcase events, I left the gym. I wanted no part of that circus. And so now let's get to the brass tacks. The reality is, Henry, he's a gifted passer, right? He's got a feel for where guys are. He's got a flair for delivering the ball. People use names like Ricky Rubio to describe his passing ability. Ricky Rubio is an amazing passer and has been since he was a teenager playing against pros, high-level pros, and to include our Team USA guys. And so that's pretty interesting, right? He put up 100 points, I think, in a high school game once, and he's got some okay dunks, and he's got a lot of long threes. But those are and one highlight reel stuff. Those are fake mixtape stuff. I don't understand, Henry, why in this draft people are so sure he should be the top pick given his weaknesses. And I made a note of this, Henry. So here the question about this is on ESPN in areas of improvement. They have a very nice analysis of everything. I'm going to read this for you, okay? He struggled to score efficiently throughout his career. Shot just 46% from 2-point range and 25% from three. Shoots jumpers, let me say this, with unorthodox mechanics, including a two-handed release while kicking out his legs. The touch shows, when you do that, I got to go to my small screen, Judy. Hang on. Okay. The touch shows that he shows on floaters and career 80% free throw percentage leaves room for optimism. I agree with that. But his inability to buy a basket at times this season in the half court was discouraging. Let me go on. They wrote this. Lacks a degree of high-end explosiveness, creating offense from a standstill and beating opponents off the dribble. I agree with that too. Doesn't have the strength to finish what he does create around the basket. Relies on a lot of tough floaters and other difficult attempts inside the arc. That's why his shooting percentage was so bad. And then how about this? Indifferent defender for much of his career. Still reverts back to that frequently, especially off the ball. Struggles to get over screens due to his lack of strength. Has been maligned at times for his work ethic and level of focus. Projected role by my friend John Gaboni, franchise point guard. What? All right. So just to be fair, Henry, because I want to be fair, and I kind of helped John get into this business a long time ago and really adore him. I looked to see what they wrote about Zion last year. So how about Zion? I'm not going to read everything from him. But one of his weaknesses, this was areas of improvement, doesn't have a traditional position in yesterday's NBA. Okay. needs to be surrounded by shooting to be most effective, perhaps similar to Ben Simmons. Fair enough. Nothing against Zion. Now we're talking about teammates. But here's the best one. We'll likely need to learn to dial back the intensity at times. That's his weakness compared to LaMelo Ball, right? And then Ben Simmons, there were 4 things. No, not a consistent shooter, we know. Lacks confidence in his jumper, yes. LaMelo's not that way. He writes about Ben Simmons can be a little too unselfish at times. You wouldn't argue that with LaMelo. And doesn't always play with a great motor. That is a concern was a concern with Ben Simmons, but he was playing against LSU, and he was way better than everyone. LaMelo was playing with pros. And then my last one, Karl-Anthony Towns. You know what his one weakness was? Needs to add strength and toughness to his 18-year-old body. That's it. So I gave a long list of LaMelo, and he's a franchise point guard. It just is so odd to me, Henry.
I think the thing that strikes me is at this level of the game, right? So now we're talking about, how many millions of 18, 19-year-olds play basketball on planet Earth, right?
Yeah.
Now we're talking about the top 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? At this level of refinement, the notion that you're 6'7" is unremarkable, even for a point guard, right? Like it's just like Petri Kaponen was a tall point guard as a draft prospect once, right? Like they come all the time, right? And then I was thinking about Earl Clark. I think, did you work with Earl Clark?
I trained Earl Clark in the draft.
Okay.
Yeah.
Earl Clark had, according to this, at this moment of the analysis, right, had some elite NBA skills, but not all of them, right? Yeah. Like to be having 6'7" size and some elite skills, we all know doesn't make you the top overall pick, right? Like this is the territory of the players who have filled in category after category and just produced, right? I just mean it seems like a no-brainer that somebody who's 6'7", I say 6'7" a lot because that's actually an average NBA height, right? It's not, if you're talking Bol is tall enough that you might just love him for his height and forgive a lot of sins, right?
And he was second round.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm talking
he was second round with those. Yeah. And it looks like he might be pretty good. He also may not be. And so we can argue. And John Hollinger, I thought made a good argument. And I have all this in our document, Henry, where he says for small market teams, this is your only chance to get a marquee player, of which LaMelo might be. So even if that's true, and LaMelo ends up being a marquee player, do you really think he's going to stick with a small market team? I don't. There's no evidence to believe he's going to stick anywhere, right? Much less a small market team. And so, and thanks to you, and you've helped me kind of get through this, some of my alarm has not just been with his being ranked where he is, based on things I don't see, and based on a lot of negative things I do see. It's the way everyone seems to embracing stuff only for him and ignoring it, his weaknesses, but embracing those weaknesses of other people. Mike Schmitz from ESPN, again, I've known Mike since he was really, before he's even doing this kind of stuff. Very, very nice young man, and he knows way more about this draft than I do, for sure. I don't really pay attention to kind of make the league, except for these few guys. But when he's projecting LaMelo to go number 1, and he does talk about his talent as a passer, and I'm with him on that. He might be the best playmaker in this draft. But he writes that he's a true entertainer on the floor. Well, no one's entertained by losing. Let's leave that aside. He writes, despite defensive concerns alongside D'Angelo Russell and Karl-Anthony Towns, Ball would electrify the Minnesota fan base and give the Timberwolves one of the league's most skilled 25 and under trios. But that alone ignores the fact that both Russell and Towns rank very low on the defensive scale.
Oh, this has long been. Amin was saying it'll be hilarious when they all play together because this is going to be a terrible defensive team. And just for fun, I looked up. I think we can all agree the Minnesota Timberwolves are the Illawarra Hawks of the NBA, right? We all agree on that, right?
Them and the Kings they're mirror images. Yeah, they're right there. Yeah.
The Illawarra was LaMelo's Australian team, which is not a good team, and they were 3-9 with him. And there was an article that their attendance was up 10% when LaMelo was there, but the league was up 21%. So this notion that there's something about his play, a rookie who doesn't help you win. It's just, has this ever sold a lot of tickets?
Well, not for long.
When you can't even go to the game,
right. That's true. That's actually a great point. Not for long. So you've got to be successful, right? It would sell out Summer League. Like the NBA lost a lot of money in July. Well, they would have sold out any Summer League pretty much, but it would have been a mob scene in Vegas for sure. He would have played the 8:00 game every night he played. Every game sold out for sure, TV, the whole thing. But if you lose, we know this. We know people stop coming, right? One interesting thing that I noticed in looking at this from what other people were writing, and you and I talked this morning about Kevin Pelton, our friend, who's a genius, and he's a wonderful, just a nice, decent man. We could use a lot of that in today's world, by the way. No arrogance whatsoever, and quite frankly, he probably should walk with a big swagger because he's a smart dude.
He's been right about a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'm not at all criticizing. I mean, all these guys work their asses off. And hell, John flew to Tasmania to see Ball play. I didn't do that. But Kevin says when he's looking at, he says, one takeaway, this is from one of his ESPN articles, from my work looking at translating player statistics from other leagues, including the NCAA, to the NBA, is that a handful of metrics stabilize quickly and are indicators of talent, most notably usage rate. That's a really interesting thing. If you were a ball hog, right, and you do it in college, it's translating, you're still going to be a ball hog. But there's a concern I have with that, which comes with losing, which LaMelo has done at the pro level, with not his fault that they lost. They lost before he got there. They lost when he was there. They lost after he left after 12 games. So they were just always going to lose. But it's not like he was one of these players. You know, we talk about how guys like Dwayne Wade has many examples of this. He's one of many examples. When they get to the NBA, Henry, the game opens up for them, and maybe they're given more of a green light role. His light has been glowing neon green since he was 14. Right now, it's probably caused a bit of a problem, which leads to another issue that I have. When I think it was Mike wrote that he needs to be given the keys to the franchise right away to fully develop his talent. I just don't agree with that at all. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Tyreek Evans.
Oh yeah, and there's many guys where you just say, hey, here's the keys. You're basically saying it's okay to mess up. No, there has to be accountability as a pro. Do you want to get better? I can't see Pop. Like when Pop got Kawhi, he didn't just run the offense through Kawhi. That took 3 years. He made him be his defensive guy and just catch and shoot three. And LaMelo is a different player. I get that. He's a playmaker. But
Tony Parker like again and again.
Oh my God.
Again,
yes, he screamed at him. Like there's lots of video of that. No, you have to be coached. And we don't know how he's going to handle that. No. And ESPN also reported that John Gavoni wrote that he thinks the parent issue, he actually wrote this. He wrote, part of that is due to the father's past antics, which I think are overblown by now. But a college coach told me yesterday, Ball's dad was on TV recently talking shit. Yeah. Like all these alarm bells. And then the rating, Mike wrote that there's a lot of Trae Young in him. He says, well, not the same caliber shooter, not even close, by the way, at 25% this year. He reminds me a little bit of a 6'7" Trae Young, another confident, high usage guard who faced questions about whether his style would translate to the NBA. What questions did anyone have about Trae Young being able to shoot from deep with that kind of elite level quickness and ball handling? No one questioned that. We questioned his defense. We still do. Right?
There is a similarity with Trae Young.
Well, they both have ears. They both don't play defense. They both chuck deep shots. One makes it. I prefer my deep shooters to make their threes at a decent clip, right? Ball's got really special passing skills. It'd be great if he shot less and passed more, but you still got to compete. We wrote an article yesterday about this very thing. At the end of the day, and this is going to happen with Trae Young, his offensive talent is so overwhelming that it masks his nightmare defense with his overall plus minus. But that's going to catch up to him in time if they can't advance.
But can you tell us about the shoe wiping thing?
Oh yeah, so funny. So I watched a lot of tape on him, and we all, anyone that plays basketball is going to recognize this. Depending on where you're playing, if you're outdoors, which I played a lot of basketball, your shoes can get a little sandy. So you reach down and you wipe the bottom of your shoes with your hand, right? And you're doing it and also to clean the dirt off, but also to keep your hands drier because they tend to get sweaty. So you kill two birds, one stone. Everyone does it. But we don't do it during the game when we might have to make a play. And I'll fast forward later to an NBA guy I talked to you about this, a player who didn't believe me when I told him this. I'm watching LaMelo, and he doesn't guard guards very well at all. He's not quick. That's why the Trae Young comparison makes no sense to me. He's not quick, and he doesn't really run fast. He might run fast. How would you know if he doesn't try? So I don't know if he runs really fast. But he's not quick, so he tends to guard small forwards. He guarded guards poorly, but normally they're sticking him on the guy standing in the corner playing the PJ Tucker role in Australia. Stand here with that guy. The ball might be 15, 20 feet away from him. He's standing straight up. Now, if you watch most NBA players, even off the ball, they're going to be bent kneed, lower their hips, back a little bent, ready to move, because all 5 players now are weaponized except for the Rockets, where 4 guys stand around one, right? You got to be ready for face cuts, backdoor cuts, screens, flare screens, using screens, whatever. He's standing straight up, LaMelo, and then I see him clean his shoes off. Meanwhile, the guy could have backdoor cut anytime he wanted to. And I just thought, boy, my first thought was, that's weird. Then he did it again, like a couple possessions later, and I thought, well, maybe he just knows this guy's never cutting. Henry, I saw him do it 5 times in one game, and I felt so bad I stopped. So I went to the next game, first clip of him on defense. He's standing straight up, and now I'm thinking, oh, my God, he's going to do it. Oh, he's going to do it. Oh, he's going to clean his shoes off during the play again. And again, the ball's not 50 feet away from him. It's 15, 20 feet away. His guy is in a position to easily score. This is him saying, I don't give a fuck about what we're doing on defense here. Until I have the ball, it doesn't matter. And the irony is he rebounds his ass off, which is great for transition. Once the ball is shot, he's engaged. Let's go. He goes to get the ball and pushes. And he's a great hit-add passer. And he's a great in transition. He'll find the trail guy. He's smooth with that. He can throw with either hand, which is nice. So it is possible you can engage him to be a serious defender the way he is a serious rebounder. Although part of his rebounds, he's playing with much smaller guards than we'll see in the NBA. But he's never done it yet. That's a hell of a risk. Don't tell me you can just flick a switch and get guys to care about defense. Minnesota's had a bunch of coaches, including Thibodeau. It ain't worked yet. It's not easy to do that.
Okay, so let's say I think I might be like activating you in a dangerous way here, but let's just say that I am whoever's buying the Timberwolves next. We don't know who that is yet, right? And basically you're making a pitch to me that we should take. We have to pick. We're going to pick James Wiseman, Anthony Edwards, or LaMelo Ball. What do you say to me?
So we wrote a piece about this last week, and I to me, it's a one-player draft, and I know Minnesota has that position, but I don't care. And so what I did do in the Wiseman piece, Henry, as you know, and I quoted him, I called a coach that knew Wiseman intimately. Let's just say that intimately, and because I wanted to get some feedback, because on tape he played 3 games, and on high school tape he looked competitive. His team was really good, unlike I thought Ball's team. Like Memphis East guarded you. Wiseman tried for his coach, Penny Hardaway, in high school and college. And I called this coach and I said, I think you should go number 1 overall, but tell me where I'm wrong. He's like, oh, you're not wrong. Like, this guy is everything you want. So then yesterday, when I spoke to this great college coach about Ball, a different college coach, I asked him about Wiseman, and I told you what he said. He loved him. He said, our staff met for fun, and we did a ranking of all the college players we've seen, because they don't know about Ball in Europe. And they had Wiseman, the number 1 player of all the guys they saw, because they recruited all these guys, and said, Coach, he's really, really bright and speaks Mandarin.
This is new. Yeah, wow. Awesome.
Yeah, woo! Like, I don't see a downside for Wiseman. I don't understand someone who thought Ball should go number 1 also said that Wiseman reminds him of Hassan Whiteside, this gigantic, slow-footed monster of a guy. Wiseman is guarding guards and dribbling the ball through his legs, and I don't know what they're talking about. That's just not at all what I've seen. So I would take him, and there's trade rumors too, Henry. And I quoted one from Zach Buckley of Bleacher Report. This is John Gavoni's trade proposal. I think John reported that he heard it. I don't think this is his idea. He said, OKC, this is what Gavoni said in the podcast, OKC might view LaMelo Ball is distributing in deep shooting range as more face of the franchise material than Gilgeous-Alexander's all-around game. That was alarming to me. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a great season at 21 years of age with a weirdly built team of Chris Paul, Steven Adams, and Torts. I have a hard time believing anyone is seeing they can't build a team around SGA, but can. But a year from now, if LaMelo Ball really guards people all year, I get it. The playmaker, if he indeed can beat people, which I want to address in a minute, but not right now. And the one thing that Gavoni wrote this in his weakness report. I told you this, and I didn't even write this in our piece because I don't want to beat the guy up too much. He had trouble beating guards off the dribble one-on-one. He needs a screen. That doesn't mean he'll need them later on, but he needs a screen. Harden doesn't, right? This is no James Harden. He is not Luka Doncic, who doesn't need a screen all the time either with his stops and starts. He needs a ball screen. I'd say what he did do. He wasted. Do you remember a guy named Nate? I think it's Jawai, Nathaniel Jawai. They call him Nate Jawai. Big, heavy guy. I think the Wizards drafted him. He cooked him a bunch, and guys like him off we call them hezzy moves. He would come to three. He would fake shooting the three, and for some reason they went for it as if you should have said, please shoot it more. Right. And then he would blow by them, and it was nice. But, he ain't doing that to Rudy Gobert. He's not doing that to Bam Adebayo. The number of centers we have in the league that can contest and then guard. And remember this too, Henry. The league, as we're speaking, is searching every day now for 6'9" guys that can fight Joel Embiid inside, but take him outside. And they can guard guys on the perimeter too. That's where they're trying to get more and more, which is why I love Weissman that much more. He is an agile, Chris Bosh-like big man, 7 feet tall, super long wingspan that I think can guard outside and inside and do the same thing offensively with the ball, without the ball. LaMelo's not just going to hezzy go against them and dunk on them.
No. What are the chances that LaMelo doesn't get drafted in the top 3?
So you want to hear what Brian Windhorst has to say?
I do. Yes, please.
Okay, hold on. I did some work this morning, Henry, despite a tropical storm warning. There, you see it?
You're about to get a tropical storm.
Yeah. You see it, Judy? Windhorst proposed ball could slide. It's interesting.
Near the very end of the document.
Yeah. So he was interviewed a couple days ago, I think, on maybe Rachel Nichols. Oh, we got a little commercial first. And right away, Brian initially talks about the work that guys like John and Mike put into ESPN. All these draft experts, I know, I've dealt with them for many years. They work their tails off. Okay, here it is right here. We can turn it on.
And Pelton obviously puts a lot of number crunching into this. This isn't just, gee, I'm enamored of LaMelo Ball. What do you think of this pick from him?
I'm not Kevin Pelton, and I'm not Jonathan Gavoni. Jonathan Gavoni, who has gone to Tasmania to scout LaMelo Ball, thinks he's the most talented player in the draft. I can just tell you that the executives that I talk to, many of them do not agree, and many of them see LaMelo Ball potentially sliding in this draft. Again, the number 2 and number 3 teams, Golden State and Charlotte, are looking for big men right now. We don't have a read on Chicago at number 3. The Cavs at number 5 are loaded. If LaMelo Ball doesn't go number 1, there are some executives in this league, and it's not a consensus, but there are some executives in this league that could see him sliding way back. And the number 6 team, Atlanta, has shown a willingness to maybe move its pick. So I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. We may see LaMelo Ball holding that Timberwolves hat and everything's A-okay, but I'm telling you, my listening to that is not solid right now.
So there you go, right? I spoke when I never thought LaMelo was a top pick, and so I spoke to a GM, February, January, seems like 8 years ago, and he trashed Ball. This was the decision maker for an NBA team that you just can't look cool and win games. Like these guys are, these are competitive dudes, which is what I wrote about, and I've got major concerns about that, as I wrote. I mean, he drives a Lamborghini. That doesn't mean he's a terrible person. Maybe he rented it. Maybe they gave it to him for free. But I'm allowed to have an opinion after all these years, with all these red flags coming to me. I just don't know if he's going to grind through and succeed, or just say this franchise sucks, this coach sucks, this team sucks, and want out. And then Hollinger wrote something, Henry, so incredible, as he typically does. He's one of my favorite writers of all time. But he wrote, this is how he finished it. He said, he writes good things and bad things about it, but he wrote, all told, however, it could be a wild ride in his first couple of seasons. Between his penchant for home run passes, the YOLO 40-foot pull-ups, and the defense, he definitely will drive his first coach insane. That really jumped out at me. Who's drafting a guy that probably gets his first coach fired? Knowing that he probably would. That seems problematic, doesn't it?
I mean, if it's Magic Johnson, that's one thing, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but they won a championship.
Right. This is my point. Like, okay,
right.
It's, if it's Bill Walton or whatever, then like maybe you upend your franchise for a certain talent, but like a guy who turned the 3-9 Illawarra Hawks into the 3-9 Illawarra Hawks.
Exactly. So that's a great point. I think a number of people have talked about how he makes players better. Well, it is true that he is helping guys get buckets they wouldn't normally get. That's his gift of passing. I completely agree. But that isn't how we make players better ultimately, right? You and I both, for a decade, have criticized LeBron on the idea that he automatically makes you better. Jay Crowder didn't get better. There's a decent list of guys, by the way, who didn't just mesh with him. But what we can't argue is that he made his players win more. That's inarguable, correct? You're winning more with LeBron James, right?
Yeah.
What else really matters in this business?
Yeah, this is like, I know I beat the plus minus drum pretty hard, but like, this is a plus minus player. You know what I mean? Like this is
Absolutely.
If we want to compare, whatever he's missing is roughly described as Kyle Lowry, right?
Right.
And whatever he has is something that's easily assessed in box scores and highlights, right? So like, how do you sniff that out? It's like, well, how did this team do when he checked into the game? And I don't think this age or this number of games or minutes is appropriate to draw firm conclusions.
Fair.
But you're still hungry for evidence that he's the next Magic Johnson, right? Like there's just, most people aren't. In fact, everybody isn't, right? So why would you think this guy is in some special exception club? Like we just haven't seen it yet. And it's weird. It is weird to me with the top overall pick to be discussing what you think someone will develop, right? Like I know it happens. It's wonderful. Like, Jason Kidd was not a 3-point shooter and then became one of the best of all time, right? It happens after you get to the NBA once in a while. But to bank on it, to have that be the plan, that's the plan here, right? The plan here is that he will be way better. And wow, it's uncommon, right? That's not a common thing to occur.
So I want to share with you two quick things that further your point beyond just the physicality of like Marcus Smart and Kyle Lowry, which you and I both love those guys as players because those kind of things that kind of do helps win games. The intensity they bring. Zion Williamson, when your weaknesses dial it back, bro, that's a good sign, right? Dwayne Wade, come on, Dwayne, quit diving. Larry Bird, you're going to hurt your back if you keep diving. That's the problem you want to have, right? So many years ago, ESPN sent me to New Orleans to evaluate Chris Paul versus Darren Williams, Darren Williams, I think, did he go ahead of Chris Paul in the draft? I don't remember anymore. Maybe number 2. There's a big controversy. And even though Chris Paul was having a better career, D. Wills tended to outplay Chris Paul one-on-one. So they sent me. I sat next to Mark Spears, directly behind Jerry Sloan. And I thought I enjoyed using the F word. No comparison in Mr. Rest in Peace, Jerry Sloan, towards referees and everyone else. It was a delightful game. And I got there early, as I always do. And D. Will came on the court. And he was there pretty early for warmups. I mean, early warmups, 2.5 hours before the game, whatever. And he was just talking shit to his team and making fun of guys. And it was jocular, locker room kind of stuff. But I didn't love it. It was a big game. It was an important game. And Utah was a good team. And then Chris Paul came out. And this was young Chris Paul, relatively young. Henry, he was such a breath of fresh air. He was so positive with his guys. They had some young players. I did not expect this to happen, by the way. I had no idea what would happen. And I just remember thinking, boy, Chris Paul, when he wants to, can be so charming. And his team won that game. It was great. And so now that's something I really value. So this past March, when my son took a visit to Florida State, and the coaches told me about this kid, Scotty Barnes, who we're going to be talking about very soon here. 6'9" wing for the number one team in the country last year. They had the number one and number two players. He was number two. But he didn't play point guard, but the head coach told me I'm going to play him at point because he's really a point guard. We think he's Magic Johnson, Scottie Pippen. Come on. Like, there's no such thing as Magic Johnson, Scottie Pippen. Well, my son, who is not a professional evaluator of talent, but has seen a few good players in his life, including a bunch of pros in my gym, he didn't just tell me that he's Giannis. He also said he is by far our loudest guy in practice. Not on the court. He said when he's on the court, he's a freshman. He's my son's age. He's trying to figure stuff out. But when you take him out, this is a top 5 pick next year. And when my son, who would never make stuff up like this, is telling me he's the loudest guy in every practice. And when he doesn't practice, we suck. Because he just gives so much spirit to what we do. That's what a number one pick in a draft looks like. And when I talked to an NBA guy yesterday, who was apparently 2021 is a good class. I think 2022 is a monster class for whatever reason. But that's why he's in the running for number one next year. His biggest problem is he doesn't shoot great, but at 6'9", 7-foot wingspan, and the best spirit of all, that's what you want. You think LaMelo Ball is someone's best cheerleader? Come on now. That's not what I see. Not that he doesn't high five guys. Huh?
Yeah.
So
this guy needs to just have a massive high usage rate, and then he'll look good. Right?
When I read Kevin Pelton's
we should talk about. I know a little bit about this usage rate thing. Okay, so in the early days of advanced stats, David Berry and John Hollinger were two of the big names. And David he's done some brilliant work, but a very mean man, a mean-spirited man. David Berry just went after Hollinger again and again. And the core of the debate was this shot creation thing, which is hard to value. Like, if somebody takes a lot of shots on your team, they've either wasted a lot of possessions or solved the riddle of how do we find shots. And it's a difficult to value thing. This is an old debate. So what I hear Kevin Pelton saying when he says that usage rate translates, I think what he's saying is that there are some players who are situationally efficient. So the all-time example of this is what's his name? Longtime Spurs backup center, 3-point shooter. Oh my God.
Thiago Splitter.
Embarrassing. I can't remember his name right now. What?
Thiago
No.
Not Splitter.
No.
Not Jacob Porter.
Anyway. No. This is embarrassing. Anyway, but that dude would only come in the game. Bonner. Thank you.
Oh, Matt Bonner, Florida.
Matt Bonner kills it in plus minus because he only comes in when there's a big slow guy and they can drag him out of the paint, and then the whole offense works, right? So Matt Bonner does not play unless the situation is ideal for Matt Bonner. So he kills it in plus minus, right? This is where the usage rate is a solution. The usage rate is, here's somebody who did it in a lot of different situations, that is actually a sign that they will be able to do some things against lots of different kinds of defenders in the NBA. So I think that's what's happening there. It's not quite the same as saying it's a benefit to be a ball hog, right? It's a little more like, there's a little layer of insight there that I think is probably valuable.
Yeah, and nothing projects, perfectly. Obviously, it's impossible, right? 12 hours ago, we weren't going to get a drop of rain, and now we're literally having to bring all of our furniture to the house where that was outside, and they can't even get 12 hours right. Sometimes there's lots of variables. There is. So I wrote in the article, I mentioned Deion Waiters and Nick Young. Those are high usage guys who've never really, in my opinion, valued winning as much as just getting shots off. But I think there's something really interesting, Henry, when Gavoni writes about and talks about, but he wrote this in his weaknesses about the tough shots he tends to take. And he does. I saw this a lot of, he is 6'7", shooting sometimes over 6'2", 6'3" guys in the paint. It doesn't make him a lot, but he makes some. If he could learn to not take those shots, which are just low value shots, and pass instead, that would be a good sign. The problem is, you're not going to get assists necessarily because teams shouldn't help on that. He's not finishing enough.
Right.
He doesn't have the ability to cook his guy Remember, the whole idea is to get the second domino to fall, right? Get that second defender to come, and now let's play 4-on-3, right? I would never help. Just you're on an island, go under every screen until he can start making threes consistently. And I just don't think he's a good one-on-one scorer yet. I know this, if you watch his high school tape, and I talked to this college coach about it, and it's not LaMelo's fault. This is how they played. They played like some of the Loyola Marymount teams, except they didn't even try. He didn't even try to press. He just didn't bother getting back on defense. And so there were plenty of cherry pick buckets where you got a lot of points off. The high point per game was just uncontested layups and dunks. His transition defense, it's not even fair. There is no transition defense. He doesn't care about getting back. And when he is back, because he never ran on offense, because his team also flew out, he kind of made bailout plays to go after the ball. In our piece, I sent you a few videos of Luka Doncic in transition D trying to make a play, get a steal, make a tough shot. LaMelo just kind of would reach in and half-assed it. I know what fake effort looks like. I've been around. A lot of fake effort. It could change, but to bet on that is risky as hell to me.
I do remember, actually, I remember being up late talking to you and others about a wizard passer who played overseas and maybe didn't have the other skills, wasn't a great shooter, always had the ball in his hands, who maybe we first overall pick. Yeah, right? Then we had this whole thing about Rubio rode into the draft on just a cresting wave of enthusiasm, right? Yeah. And I would just point out, we could have the Rubio conversation, but he's a super elite defender. He's amazing at that end, and he never really figured out the drawing fouls and scoring at the rim and 3-point. He's never been everything he could have been, right? Which meant we could never quite unlock his wizardry, right? He never quite got to take over games because you could defend him, knowing a lot of options were on the table. But this is interesting to me. Where like Rubio performed at a higher level before the NBA, not quite as tall, but similar argument for him, and did just as passing wizardry without the shooting in the D or whatever. He not a star.
Right, he's a good player. He's a nice player. He's good. He's a starting level point guard for a lot of teams. I didn't mention Rubio, I don't think, in my article because other than just being kind of paler skin, taller, thinner guys and good passers, there's nothing else there. Rubio's competitive as fuck. Rubio guards, always has guarded. Rubio's way better as a post feeder in driving. It helps that he's passing to great players, of course. And that's fair to say with LaMelo, he'll be even better if he's the worst offensive player on his team. This is a really important point. If he's the worst offensive player on his team, they're going to have a hell of an offense. And this is a monumental if, he's willing to tone his game down the way ESPN wanted Zion to tone his intensity down, his diving, caring about winning. If LaMelo would just tone down his gunning, he's such a good passer. It could really be fun. But Rubio's issue, and this is your point about usage rate, Rubio was really hurt by his coach, I think it was Real Madrid, who in Spain, I watch a lot of games in the ACB. Their guards over dribble, but don't score a lot. They aren't weaponized. And as the game is moving into a weaponized all five players, they were still playing everyone move the ball, democracy, right? Democracy rules instead of the king. And it really hurt Ricky. He didn't learn how to score. LaMelo's got the usage rate for sure, but I don't know that he scores with any kind of efficiency and productivity against good players that makes us think he could be better than Rubio. They even mentioned in one of ESPN's things that it might have been Hollinger, where he can do what Rubio does in the full court, but not in the half court, which I agree with, and doesn't defend. So it works both ways. Again, I'm not saying don't draft the guy, although as I wrote, I wouldn't take him in the lottery unless he agreed to spend a year in the G League and understood with the signing a contract with me that the first time his dad challenges anyone in our franchise, we're trading you immediately. May not happen the next day because someone has to be willing to take you, but we are not going to trade you to do what's best for you. We're warning you. We're going to do what's best for us only. And we're not going to be partners anymore. If you have a family member challenging us, that you make fun of us at home all you want. You wouldn't be the first dad. Mr. Ball would not be the first dad to say that fucking coach sucks, right? He'll just be the first one to do it on air all the time. We can't have that as a franchise. So if you agree not to do that and you agree to go to the G League for a year, but knowing that at any point we can move you up as a reward for how well you're guarding and playing or whatever, but we need you to learn how to value winning. And we're not going to waste our veterans' time with you having to learn that. Prove it in the G League first, which is going to be a very strong league this year, the G League, because teams can't sign 15 or 14 guys plus two-ways because of their budgets. So you're going to have clear NBA players in the G League. And I don't think he'll be MVP of that league anytime soon, if ever. I just have major questions. 10% chance he ends up being an all-star. I don't give it a high rating because I don't trust it. Like, all-stars are competitive as hell almost always. I just don't see it. And it's not so easy to change.
Judy, maybe Gerard could join us while I get David to weigh in on a little trade rumor. This is not a rumor. In fact, this is just an idea that I saw on Twitter, but it struck me as like, kind of clever. What do you think, David or Gerard, about welcome? I thought this was clever. Would you, if you were the Warriors and James Wiseman comes to the second pick, would you trade that pick and Wiggins for a bunch of Knicks stuff that includes Mitchell Robinson?
Hell no. I like Mitchell Robinson. I like Mitchell Robinson, but you know what he is. Again, and I want to hear Gerard's take on LaMelo Ball too, but very much so. But Wiseman might be like a elite player. I know that it's not guaranteed. If he had played 30 games this year, well, it'd been 25, 26 before COVID, we would have a better feel for it. But I'm not punishing him for that. The Warriors have a chance to have another all-star. Just as their guys age out, here comes the next wave. So Mitchell Robinson is a good defender. He helps their team for a year and a half. Go ahead. What do you think, Gerard?
Well, listen, you follow up a definitive answer like that from Coach on the hell no. Like, I mean, yes, like I like Mitchell Robinson too, but I think we kind of know where he projects to be. Wiseman is he could be something really great. Yeah. Again, the question Bob Myers and they have to answer is, are they willing to do all that and figure out and take the time? Or are they like, no, I need someone NBA ready, really good right now to get us to the title now because we have to win this year because we don't know what's going to happen, year after next. On to LaMelo Ball. Yeah. I talked to a couple of college coaches, and not only just this draft was their overall take on this, but also they're just like, dude, I have no idea. Like, this literally, I have no idea. There are things that I like, a lot of things I don't like, much to what Coach said. And I wonder if, in fact, are we grading him on a tougher curve because of his last name? And we are, but that's part and parcel with the deal, right? Like that's what the situation is that you were born into, right? And what strikes me as something, again, concerning is just his whole prep career, right? Like, he didn't stay at any one high school. I mean, and I get it. Most guys don't do that now, right? Like, Kevin Durant went to 4 high schools. Like, fine. Okay, that happens. But the way in which it happened is what's alarming to me. And then, all right, we're going to go play in Australia. We're going to do all this stuff. And to your points, all the stuff you pointed out, the team didn't get better. He and his skill set didn't develop or get better, right? Like, he's someone who looks like, to me, you've been 6'7" and sort of long and athletic your whole life, and you're kind of just using that as like your way to be like, here's how good I am, but you're not actually working on what Coach does with his guys, which are the nuts and bolts of the game, right? And when you watch tape, when you don't see it. And then there's the other stuff, right? All the off the floor stuff where you're like, do you care about being good at basketball, or do you just want to be rich and famous? Which, again, you're allowed to be that way when you're 18 years old, but as Coach says, but the good guys in this league, they have that will to be like, yo, I'm here to work. And from what I see and from the little I've heard, I don't know if that to be true about him.
Well, you mentioned Kevin Durant. So I've seen Kevin Durant play. This guy is no Kevin Durant.
No.
Senator.
to quote the vice presidential debate.
Yeah.
But your point is exactly right. I didn't write in the article, but it's alarming. Like, where is the fight to fight through whatever issues you're going to have? Think about James Harden. They weren't very good at Arizona State. he was a very nice role player when he got to OKC. I went to his first summer league games, and I sat actually next to Serge Ibaka watching the games that weekend. And James, he could really pass, and he made easy plays. And I never saw this. I never saw this James Harden. I know he didn't either. He never did it before. That only came because of two things. One, incredible amounts of work. You can't get around it. The way he handles the ball and shoots the ball and finishes and his body, that is enormous amounts of work on the court. And then two, the green light to do it. Well, Ball's always had the green light. Where has he ever put in the work besides he dribbles a lot, makes a lot of crazy passes, and they're cool looking, but he's been shooting for a lot. I'd be more concerned. I'd be less concerned if he didn't shoot very much.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot of hours grooving that chucker that he's been doing.
And for LaMelo,
this.
Sorry, Henry, just really quick. It's going to depend. And what helped Harden too was going into that environment at OKC with KD and Russ, right? Guys who work their tails off. Yeah. If he goes to a place where they create that kind of, and that's what's expected of him, he's got a chance. But if it's someplace where it's a dumpster fire, it's going to be awful.
Did anybody happen to read the Peter Guralnick Elvis Presley biography? Which I think it's 2 volumes. It's a big commitment. But I'm gonna put it into a sentence for you, which is the Colonel rigged it for Elvis, right? Like his manager was kind of shady, a little payola, a little this, but like he put him in an environment where from the very beginning it looked like he might be like the second coming, right? Like you just make it so that if Elvis is in the show, there's a certain kind of spotlight, and there it just looks like people are losing their minds, and then people train themselves to lose their minds for Elvis, and it worked. It worked. There probably could have been 30 other Elvises at that time, but one of them had the right manager to get the job done, right? And you can make a similar case about Justin Bieber. We talk about that, but I think LeVar Ball is the Colonel. Right? I think, yes, at this stage of the game, now that every one of his children is seen as an elite basketball prospect, we can say that they're getting their careers harmed by him a little bit because he's kind of a pain in the ass, right? But they're all in discussion to make the highest league in the land, which is directly attributable to him, right? Like he decided, like, I don't care if you guys never win a game. Like, I don't care if there's not a single coach in the world who says that you were a good teammate. Like, all I care about is that every time they discuss you, you're gonna have the ball in your hands, right? Like we're gonna go school to school to school, and if they want you to like take a backseat to anyone, we're leaving, right? And it created a certain idea that there's magic in these kids, right? And there might be, but like I think that the key distinctive thing here is that they were managed from a very young age to draw attention, and maybe that's what you do, right? Like, I'm not going to criticize it. Maybe I would do the same thing, same setting. I mean, probably not, but I understand. Like, as a parent, you do whatever you think is best for your kids, right? But that to me, I'm like, it's very possible that LaMelo Ball with a different family is the 78th ranked prospect who's not actively being discussed for the draft and hasn't had the ball in his hand for 10 years already, right? Like, there are a lot of athletic, long people who are pretty good with the ball. They just are.
He's not that athletic. And no. I wrote this, and I think Henry took it out wisely, so or one of the editors did. But at least Lonzo loves to pass. Like his dad's a pain in the ass. He loves to pass and he guards.
Yeah.
There's no teammate that doesn't love Lonzo Ball. You want him to be more assertive. When LaMelo plays the kind of defense we've seen and doesn't get back on defense and then takes those shots, he's getting punched in the mouth. Like, you cannot do that. Trae Young is so good. Wouldn't he number 2 or 3 in assists this year? Yeah. Like, he's not just chucking it. He's also a great passer. And I'm sure they got on his ass by defense, as they should. He's limited. He's a really little guy. But he's such a brilliant offensive player. You put up with it, and you're happy to have him. We don't see that with LaMelo at all. And to Henry's point about the 79th pick, whatever, I think it's exactly right. Because absent the father, we would have seen the kid have a regular high school career. Maybe it would have been great. And he's talented enough to have gone to a lot of different colleges. And then we would have seen him against a whole bunch of guys that are tough and good and playing their asses off. And if he had left, instead of declaring for the draft like he did when he left Australia, he would have had a transfer and go somewhere else. because he would have left if he was doing great. And I feel the same way about Australia. He left when things were, he put together 2 good games. Well, 2 good games. He scored 57 points on 56 shots. We're out of here. Doesn't matter if they won. We're out. We did it because he was averaging like 12 before that. So to me, it's a lot of, to quote a coach yesterday, it's a circus. And I just don't think NBA teams need a circus, although I do think he'd be great at OKC. I just wouldn't trade Shai Gilgeous.
No.
But I love the idea of Ball and Gilgeous together because Gilgeous guards.
Yeah.
And Shai can be a primary ball handler. And you can do it. You got enough picks to make that happen. I trust OKC's development system. I do. And Sam Presti's no-nonsense personality. I like that. They're not drafting number 1, but I like that for him. The Knicks, disaster. Crash fire. Right?
That's hot garbage if it goes over there. Henry, I mean, the point you made about Elvis is so it was incredible. But that's the other piece of this, right? Like, as much as like we know and like we care about the sport of it, this is entertainment, right? And LeVar understood that very early, right? If you keep talking about me, someone put P.T. Barnum. Yeah, there's a sucker born every minute. That was P.T.'s quote, right? Because if I keep creating mystery and controversy, it's a feedback loop. You're going to want, I got to get in here. I got to get in here.
Absolutely.
And I think that's probably what all the people are caught up about with LaMelo Ball, right? It's like, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? It's like the three-eyed man at the circus. Oh my God, I can't wait to see it. So all of that is enough to get you up and high up in the draft. And someone's probably going to take him in the top 3. I don't know who, but someone will.
Well, now go ahead, Amy. Go ahead.
Really fast. Like it's, he's part of the show. He's a character in this TV show of the NBA now, right? And in the real world of what makes people care, like those emotions are brilliant, right? Like they're gonna sell a lot of stuff. And he'll be interesting. And I hope he's great. I don't know. I hope he's a wonderful young man. I hope he develops into a beautiful player. I think what this show, we're a little obsessed with winning. Right. Like we take this radical position that they like the fun part is to get your team to play together to win. Like at that, he hasn't really like done anything to stand out.
Yeah, the sucker, the sucker every minute. We got 71 million of them in America right now. All right, let's be fair. Okay, 71 million people have been suckered. They've been hoodwinked. They've been bamboozled, and they are the type that would like to be entertained by LaMelo Ball. But they can help you win games.
Right? Run amok, led astray, all the whole quote.
Yeah, I know. I read it first. That is just not a recipe for winning. Yeah. And players get frustrated and leave. Right? You're not going to sign a great free agent if you got a guy chucking a bunch of 40-footers and not getting back on defense just because he can pass good. Nobody wants to go play for that.
I was laughing, Drawn was laughing, but when David was talking about someone punching him in the face, like, note the seriousness. If you roll back, look at David's eyes. He was not kidding. He's worried LaMelo is getting punched in the face for real.
And I like what Henry said. I want him to do well. He is a talented player. I don't think he's as talented as people give him credit for. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't see him beating. I couldn't find the highlights because they don't do highlights of guys not beating little dudes on the dribble in the NBL. Okay. I could have downloaded on Synergy. It's a pain in the ass. But I watched it. He's not getting by people, needing a screen. He's got to have to get a lot better. He can be a primary ball handler for sure. Until he learns to care, he's not going to win a lot of games. And until he learns to shoot, he's going to be a real problem for his team. And I mean, what has he been doing all this time? Like you shoot all the time. You make a quarter of them. That's a problem. And your lack of interest in shooting good shots is a big red flag if you want to win games.
I'll say this for him. I don't think he's a doper.
Yeah, he's skinny. Well, not only that, but even his biggest supporters on the internet are admitting he's not a very good interview. Like, make me love the guy. Besides, he's a good passer. He's a taller, less interested defender of Ricky Rubio.
He's gonna take you for a ride in his Lamborghini. You'll be fine. You'll like him.
Right. That doesn't mean you're a terrible person. And again, he might have been paying a dime for it. But I just have a lot of questions that this guy's going to suddenly be the franchise anything except a jester, unless he decides to take this game seriously. We are not an and one league. We're a league of men want to kick your ass to win, and they work all the time to do it. And last thing I'll say, I talked to an NBA player yesterday, and I said, I swear to you, I said to this young man who's almost 30, how often have you cleaned the bottom of your sneakers while playing defense? And he looked at me quizzically. I said, what would you guess? He's like, definitely never. I said, so if I told you LaMelo Ball did it 5 times in a short span of time in a game, would you be surprised? Like, I have no idea, but I've never done that in my career. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Wow. All right, there you go. Draw, thank you. David, thank you. Judy, thank you. We'll see you guys on Friday.